I'm a volunteer. Could I begin by just saying, first of all, I appreciate these public meetings, and I also appreciate the County Council's considerations of how best to deploy the budget during this period of austerity. So, do appreciate how difficult things are. However, I'd like to hear more about the County Council's strategic vision for the future, within which tough choices can be made. A clear strategic vision is particularly important during this time of shrinking budgets because it helps you to focus upon values and priorities and thereby avoid simply cutting those things which are most easily cut. And I think some of that has been going on. Take, for example, the youth service, which is a partnership between the statutory and the voluntary sectors, a partnership which, at best, should operate as a seamless garment. In my view, neither sector is more important than the other, and both have a crucial role. But the voluntary sector provides better value for money. Ultimately, however, it's not about whether something is voluntary or statutory. What should always be paramount are the needs of the young people of Devon. During this time of reducing budgets, the vision should be to identify these needs in order of priority, and then deploy the reduced funds most cost-effectively to meet the priority needs. I'm sure you agree with that. But what's happened during this financial year is that Voluntary Youth Services Devon is at a 100% cut to its £55,000 budget, and the statutory sector's budget of just under £4.5 million has suffered a cut of 18%. Wouldn't want it to be cut at all, but there's a difference. This despite the fact that the number of young people participating in each sector is virtually the same, at about 11,500 each. Given that we must put the needs of young people first and strive to meet their needs as cost-effectively as possible, the decision to cut the budgets disproportionately makes no sense whatsoever to me. To my question. The question is, will you please consider, when deciding upon the next financial year's youth service budget, how funding to meet the needs of young people can be allocated more proportionately and more cost effectively? It's the least that our young people deserve.
Okay, sir. Can I say that the board showing tough choices show both the youth service and underneath it the youth offending service. We show the cause and effect throughout the county council. But if you don't have the youth service, you're likely to have more in the youth offending service. So this is one of those that we have asked the tables to write down their views to us. And in fairness, 5, I think, of the tough choices meetings we've had at least one table of young people from the youth service who have been making their views very clear to us for what they would like us to do next year. We've taken on board what you're saying, and I'm sure had we had the boards out, that's what you would have been saying anyway. Best answer I can give you at this stage is, we haven't yet formulated the budget, but I know what you're saying in relation to youth service. That's not an answer, but that's a statement that we've got it. And gentleman back first. Yeah, you have your hand up first.
I'm a volunteer that looks after young people who are on the streets and also come from tents. We put them up for one night or maybe 2 nights. Now what's happening now here in this service, thank God I'm not an employee of some of these organisations, because the fear that runs through this particular county of losing your job if you speak up against your employers, and that's why you won't see very many employees at these meetings, because they'll probably be fingered. Anyway, as far as the youth service is concerned, what's happening now is that they're all arriving at the station to be put up because there's the red light at the end of and they're not coming out of the tunnel. And these young people are just getting packed up into the circumstances they're getting into. And the cuts in all these, from whether it be Exeter City Council, whether it'll be Devon County Council, is causing 20% youth unemployment. Are we going to go up like Spain, 50%? Ireland 50%. You're letting down one of the most vulnerable people in this particular country, and it's a disgrace.
So,
When the disabled have to go demonstrating on the streets in Bristol, coming from Torquay and from Devon against cuts, this is an absolute disgrace. And
it can't
sorry.
be said that I'm responsible for the increase as such.
Of course
In
you are.
youth unemployment. No.
Anyone that reads any part of the financial sector, of any of the papers, be it the pink paper or be
Yeah.
it, you will see that this government's, the way the cuts are doing, and you're part of it, is putting us into another recession.
Well, we are
And
still,
it's making things worse.
we are still taking on apprenticeships as a council, and we haven't reduced it. Right, as far as I know, Exeter City is beginning to, but I'm not sure on that. I'm getting a note from them. So, I come back that we are actually within our power base, our scope. We are.
There are parts of this county that don't have an economy, local villages and towns, right? They don't have an economy, and they rely on people to work in the public sector. And what you're actually doing is impoverishing them even more. And the people in towns are closing shops and things like that because they rely so much on the public sector. There is no private sector in towns such as Dawlish, Teignmouth, Newton Abbot. Credit in the private sector is so small.
Well, sorry, I totally disagree with you. Within Exeter, 37% of the working population is local government, or is local government, national government orientated. I would say. In many of our rural areas, in actual fact, there is quite a thriving private economy. Now, I go to different places to you, I think. I'm going to the market towns. Where I've gone to the market towns, I have seen the shops. I went to Ilfracombe, which is deemed to be one of the most depressed areas. I've been there twice. I went there 2 years ago. And they said to me then, what are you going to do for Ilfracombe? I said, what are you going to do for Ilfracombe? And the people of Ilfracombe are actually, the atmosphere, the appearance, the work ethic up there has improved immeasurably over the last 2 years. The redundancies are dropping. The teenage pregnancies are dropping considerably.
Well, wait, let's talk about Oakhampton. Let's talk about the hundreds of jobs lost in Oakhampton. Hundreds of jobs lost in Oakhampton. Why
And
pick
yet,
Oakhampton?
100 and something that went back to our training scheme that we put in there, we're back in work within a short while, sir. We're looking to invest there. We're looking to encourage companies to come to Exeter. That is what local government can do. It can't create jobs. It can create the climate so jobs can be created. Somebody's taken over one of the bigger factories. He intends to do beehives, I think it is. But he's actually taken it over. And he is creating employment in Oakhampton. As I say, 106 or 7, I can't remember the exact figure, of the people that lost their jobs through Wiseman and the others, that went on training schemes, are back in employment. That was a statement that was made by the business community.
Well, I was at this meeting last year, right? And the difference between last year and this year and the level of unemployment, you can't compare it. And you can't compare the economy what's happening today. A whole year of cuts, and next year, I'll come back next year, and the same will probably go up to 3 million, 3.5 million next year.
Okay.
I've said enough.
Okay, yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you haven't got the monopoly boards here tonight. I was down in Dawlish a couple of weeks ago, and what they actually asked of me and other people there was to look at these monopoly boards and decide effectively who's going to lose their job. Was it learning disability worker, the youth worker? You know, and basically there's about a dozen Tories that just sat there quite happily decided who was going to lose their jobs, therefore lose their house, and in my case, not have the ability to look after my daughter. And the point I made is that, you know, there's going to be £30 million worth of cuts next year. Well, I know you've got £40 million in reserves, so why don't we use those reserves? If it's for a rainy day, well, it's pissing down outside if you hadn't noticed. Councils do the same. Will send a huge message out there to the government that we were going to fight back. And this is why people here tonight You know, she joined groups like Ex-Anti Cuts Alliance and put pressure on the government that we're not going to implement these cuts. Remember who caused this crisis? It was the bankers. Why should public sector workers lose their jobs and their livelihood because a bunch of rich